Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Thin Films and Electronic Materials group led by Professor Sumit Agarwal here in the CBE department. My name is Kajun Chen, and I am a third-year PhD student in the group. Unfortunately, this year we cannot meet in person, but I hope this virtual poster session will give you a rough idea on what we do and whether this is something you would like to pursue during your PhD studies. So first, I will start with an overview of what our group is working on. And then I will share with all of you some culture in the group and how we maintain a good work-life balance. Okay, so without further ado, let's get started. From the title, you can see our group mainly works on two things. One is atomic layer processing for semiconductor manufacturing, which is featured on the left. And this branch of work is sponsored by our industrial partner, Lam Research. And for those of you who don't know about Lam Research, it is an American corporation that processes semiconductor equipment used in the IC industry. And it is currently the second largest semiconductor manufacturing company in the Bay Area, just after Tesla. And the other side is a crystalline silicon solar cell processing, which is shown on the right. This is a joint collaboration between mines and the National Renewable Energy Laboratory, or NREL, just down the road. We work with the Silicon Photovoltaic Group, led by Dr. Paul Stratton, who is the principal scientist and also a project leader within the Energy Science Directorate. The group at NREL has about 10 people in total, and we work very closely with each other in terms of processing and characterization. Now let me introduce a little bit more on each topic. For the atomic layer processing side, we focus on the synthesis and also characterization of ultra-thin films, which is just a fancy term for films with atomic layer thickness. And by studying the fundamental surface science, our group focuses on the physical and also chemical phenomena happening at these gas film interface. And as you can see in this image, which looks like a Lego piece, but it's actually the cross-sectional image of a semiconductor chip that you could probably find in your phone or laptop. And at the bottom, there are the transistors, and they are the building blocks for your chip. Did you know there are more than 20 billions of transistors in one IC chip? So as the electronic devices are getting smaller and smaller, the ability to design and also manufacturing these nanometer scale transistors is getting extremely important. Like we can see in this middle image. This is the IBM 5 nanometer gate-all-around transistor. And these horizontally stacked sheets are typically made from silicon, which is the most common semiconductor material. But the question is, how do we make these really tiny semiconductor devices? We can see from this cartoon that it involves a series of deposition and etching techniques, which means to add and then remove material in certain places that we want. And in the end, we will be left with a really fine pattern like shown here. And now going into the two techniques that we use primarily in our group. The first one is atomic layer deposition, ALD, and opposite to that is atomic layer etching, or ALE. So ALD is a sequential self-limiting technique that involves two cycles. One is with precursor and the other one is with reactant, separate by purging between. ALE is the reverse of that process, which can be seen on the right. And after creating these films, we use a lot of different techniques to characterize them, such as these two. It's called attenuated total reflection, Fourier transform infrared spectroscopy, and four wavelengths ellipsometry. And these can help us to analyze the film and also study the thickness of the film. And since we're now in an era of sub 10 nanometer node technology, we can create device with 7 nanometer or even smaller dimensions using the technique that I just mentioned. Okay, now let's move on to the silicon solar cell processing part, which is what I am working on currently. Many of you who apply to mines are probably interested in the renewable energy field. And this graph over here shows the growth for different kinds of renewable energy sources until 2050. And we can see that the largest growth is solar energy, which is shown here in yellow. I mean, it is not surprising since the sun shines on Earth every day for about billions of years by now. And the sunlight is essentially a free energy source. We just need to harvest it somehow and make use of it. Now, I'm guessing some of you are probably thinking that we see solar panels everywhere now, and what's there left to study? If I tell you that the average efficiency of these solar panels on your roof is only about 20%, which means only 20% of the sunlight can be efficiently converted into electricity, you'd probably be surprised. And that's where our work comes in. We focus on novel high-efficiency solar cells that have these passivity contact structures. The names come from the layer we add in between the metal and the semiconductor to passivate some defects and improve efficiency. This figure shows the layer-by-layer structure of a solar cell, which is a lot like a sandwich, with each layer serving its own function. We also work on a more complicated cell called interdigitated back contact, or IBC cell. And this cell has no metal on the front, so we can maximize the absorption of light. And besides these, we also focus on the degradation behavior of solar cells, since they do have a lifespan of about 20 years. One specific degradation mechanism is called light-induced degradation, which sounds a little bit counterintuitive, but it is a very important concept in certain types of crystalline silicon. And it involves a boron-oxygen complex, like shown here. So some of the characterization techniques we use, like transmission electron microscopy, TEM, or electron beam induced current measurement, or EBIC, these two can give us information on the nanometer scale and help us in designing and also understanding our problems a bit better. And there are some other techniques shown down here that we use on a daily basis in the lab that I'm not going to go into details. Okay, that's probably enough, and I hope you are all still with me. Now I want to talk a little bit more about what our group looks like. We have 8 students, half working on the atomic layer processing at Mines, and half working on silicon solar cells at NREL. This picture down here shows Matt in a coverall bunny suit, which is required to work in the clean room. All of us at NREL work in the clean room quite a lot of time because our processing needs ultra clean environment. And personally, I think this is very professional looking, and it also looks very cool. For the group culture, Professor Agarwal oversees everyone's work, and we have weekly group meetings and individual meetings for us to report our work and also get feedbacks from others. We have a very positive group environment. Everyone contributes their own opinions during meetings and help each other out. And Professor Agarwal is very dedicated to help everyone in all aspects, from abstract writing to paper publishing to conference presentations. One of the best things I like about our group is that you will be able to practice your talk or even posters within the group for multiple times until they are perfect and you're just not nervous anymore. And like shown here, we also attend quite a lot of conferences every year. So this one, I went to Winter Park, Colorado 2 years ago. And we also go to Seattle, international conferences like South Korea. It is quite sad last year that a lot of us were accepted for oral talks at international conferences, like one in Calgary, Canada, and the other one in Lisbon, Portugal. But they all went online due to COVID. So I hope things will get a little better, because travels are cool, and especially if they are free. So lastly, I want to say that we have a pretty good work-life balance. None of us are working overtime. Typically, nobody works on the weekends. And we also have a very strict 8 to 5 lab hours at NREL for safety considerations. And in our free time, we like to go outdoors, doing stuff such as hiking, climbing, skiing. So yeah, don't get scared by the amount of work you need to do. We like everyone to enjoy their work and also their life here in Colorado. I think that's pretty much it. Thank you all for joining me. And if you guys have any questions about our group or just life here in general, feel free to reach out to us. We're happy to help.